Leslie and James, thanks for joining Cabpoll. Today might start with Colin Powell, and I'm confused as to his endorsement of Obama. It seems contradictory on a number of levels, and the only logical reason I can see is maybe race-based, but surely he wouldn't do that. Would he, Leslie?
I think he might. And I think there are several things going on here. The first is he's seen the inside workings of the Bush White House,
yep,
up close and personal. Arguably he's been the victim of those workings, and I think he put up with that for a long time, and I think now he's willing to speak out on that. And he has a racial background that's not dissimilar to Obama's, in that he's not a traditional African American.
Yep.
And has made it and been successful, but I'm sure that was not without a whole lot of discrimination along the way. And I thought that he was pretty brave in finally speaking out and saying some things that I thought it was about time somebody said straightforwardly.
To do with the Muslim issue,
yes,
was one?
Yes, I thought the way him saying, there is nothing, as far as I can ever determine, in the US Constitution that says the fact that you're a Muslim would mean that you could never be President of the United States.
Right.
There are a lot of very good Muslim citizens in the United States.
He's not just simply seeking to absolve his weapons of mass destruction blunder.
He may well be, but sooner or later, all good men have a point beyond which they feel that's it, and now I have to speak out. And he probably, I think he could be criticised for holding fire over things like weapons of mass destruction, but he's finally spoken out.
Fair enough. What do you think, James?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm not here to carry any water at all for the Bush administration. I mean, as I've said, many times before, a lot of mistakes were made in this administration. This guy was not a great administration. He's not a great president. But that having been said, I think the case of Colin Powell, well, first of all, just to address the Muslim issue, I think absolutely right. There's nothing that will stop a Muslim from being president. Many great Muslim American citizens, and in fact, during the whole time when all the rumors were coming out, is Barack Obama a Muslim, the fierceness with which they knocked down, the Obama camp knocked down those rumors. I never heard from the Obama campaign either saying, there's nothing wrong with being a Muslim. I thought they should have done that at that time, because I thought that would have been, quite inclusive of them. On the question of Colin Powell, however, I respect the man, but I also think that here's a guy who saw himself suffering from that great Washington disease, relevance deprivation syndrome, and he saw an opportunity here to jump back into the game, jump back into the race, make some headlines for himself, and he's always been a guy who has clung to power in a way which I think other secretaries of state, left and right, who have had differences with their bosses, haven't. I mean, if you look at Cyrus Vance after Desert One failed, the failed attempt to rescue the Iranian hostages, he resigned from Jimmy Carter's administration. Al Haig, when it was clear that there were differences with him and Ronald Reagan, he resigned.
Voluntarily resigned?
Yeah, no, he did. He did voluntarily resign. He, they had a bit of a stoush, but after he declared that he was in charge after Reagan got shot, it was pretty clear for both of them. Actually, it's funny. I was rereading the Reagan diaries the other night, which are a really interesting portrait of the '80s. But no, he, I think, saw an opportunity to stay in the headlines and stick around, and decided, now's the time to make what, frankly, if you look at the polls, it's not exactly a brave call.
James, what do you think he wants to stick around for?
I don't know. It's an ego thing. It's Washington.
Well, you never nominated.
Don't want to just go throwing these ideas out.
Well, no, but I mean, here's a guy who
what about
could have run
ideology?
for president himself and never actually pulled the trigger on that. And I don't.
What about his accusation the Republican Party is moving to the right? I mean, McCain is less conservative than Bush.
Well, that's right. I mean, certainly his economics are quite populist. Look, we hear this thing trotted out every 4 years about, the Republican Party, the party of the, terrible, angry white men, and you know, and that these sort of bitter lunatics are all coming out of the woodwork, you know, in support of the Republican Party. And yet, if you go,
I think we've seen a few of them.
Well,
from time
if you
to time.
go hang out on some of your left-wing websites, and the viciousness and hatred that's being directed at the right, particularly at Sarah Palin. I mean, you know, the left, the Democratic Party, supposedly the party of feminism, you know, look at Daily Kos and all of these sites have all these lurid fantasies and graphics of
Daily Kos.
I have
Sarah
to say,
Palin being attacked physically,
I don't
brutally
have
violated.
time to look at those ridiculous websites.
Well, they're very popular with the left. The Netroots are very popular. They're the ones who drove Joe Lieberman out of the party.
The
Remember
cyber
that?
left, yes.
You know, so I mean, they are not without standing in the party, and in fact, they have an awful lot of influence. And you know, maybe you ought to have a look and see where some of the far left extreme sides of your party are going, because there's some shocking stuff out there.